The shocking truth: American cities will collapse forever. How long until it happens? The air was thick with an impending doom, a sense of urgency that crackled in the atmosphere like static electricity. Sirens screeched in the distance, piercing the ominous silence that blanketed the city. Streets that once bustled with life lay empty, ghostly echoes of laughter and chatter replaced by an eerie hush. Just the wind whispered through abandoned alleyways, carrying with it the unsettling truths nobody wanted to face. The relentless decay of America's urban landscapes began as mere rumors. Cracks in the pavement became fissures in the foundation of society itself, a jarring warning of what lay ahead. The first signs came creeping in like shadows at dusk. One by one, the cities faced strange phenomena. Buildings trembled as if they were shivering in anticipation, their walls holding secrets too dangerous to share. Experts spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting like frightened sparrows. "It's happening, the infrastructure is crumbling faster than we can fix it," they whispered during meetings that went nowhere, alarms ringing, but no one listened. People moved about their daily lives, blissfully unaware that the ground beneath their feet was growing weaker with every passing moment. Then, there were reports of unexplained blackouts, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness. Households huddled together, illuminated only by the flickering light of candles, while outside, shadows darted among the trees. Some claimed to see figures in the darkness, ambiguous shapes that sent shivers down spines. "Did you see that?" became a common refrain, a terrified whisper that echoed under the moonlight. Everyone felt it, the tension building like a coiled spring, ready to snap. Just when the city thought it could catch its breath, tremors shook the ground, more vicious than the last. Buildings that had stood for generations crumbled like sandcastles against a raging tide. Panic gripped the heart of the population, and the air turned electric. Could anyone save them from this impending catastrophe? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night grew darker as fear hung heavy like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash its fury. A group of neighbors gathered, eyes wide with terror, hearts pounding with the realization that they were on the brink of something catastrophic, something that could change their lives forever. Gasps erupted when a colossal crash echoed through the streets, a whole building collapsing in on itself with a deafening roar. People peeked out from their windows to see the dust rising like smoke from the ashes of their dreams. What was happening? Was this all part of some grand plan, or merely a prelude to chaos? As the truth began to unravel before their eyes, whispers of a deeper conspiracy filled the air. Could it be the government was hiding the truth all along? Were scientists unraveling something so monumental that they dared not release it into the world? Huddled together, they felt the claws of suspicion grip them tight, realizing they might just be living on borrowed time. The suspense twisted tighter around them, the question lingering: would they be the last to witness their city's fall? The ground shuddered again, a violent jolt that sent vibrations rippling through the gathered crowd. Faces transformed from bewilderment to sheer terror. Eyes darted in every direction, searching for something, anything that might anchor them to normalcy. But it was too late. The familiar city skyline was now a chaotic outline against a dark, swirling sky. "Run!" someone shouted. The word hung in the air, heavy with urgency. People scrambled, fear driving them forward as the rumble of disaster loomed. Sarah's heart raced as she gripped her daughter's hand, pulling her along, weaving through the chaotic mass of bodies. They ducked into a narrow alley, its shadows a temporary refuge. The stench of decay filled the air, mingling with the dust of the crumbling buildings above them. "I can't breathe," her daughter whimpered, panic lacing her voice. Sarah's chest tightened, the familiar ache of a mother's dread mixing with the suffocating atmosphere around them. Just a little longer, honey, she whispered, forcing calm into her own voice. But her mind was racing. Where could they possibly go? It wasn't just one building now, the city felt like it was imploding. Every block crumbling, every structure betraying its purpose. Outside, the chaos crescendoed. A distant scream pierced the noise, quickly drowned out by the oppressive sound of falling debris. More buildings groaned under their own weight, surrendering to centuries of neglect and the pressure of catastrophe. A flash of light caught Sarah's eye. She turned, just in time to see a massive cloud of dust rising from what was once the city hall. For a brief moment, its grand facade had stood regal against the night, now it was reduced to an ominous gray fog. She shook her head, struggling to grasp the reality that unfolded before them. Mom! Look! Her daughter pointed further down the alley where flickering red lights swarmed like angry fireflies. It was an emergency vehicle, the lone bastion of order amidst chaos. But as they watched, it too stopped abruptly. A harsh screeching noise echoed off the brick walls as the lights blinked out, leaving nothing but darkness and despair. Is it still safe? Whispered her daughter, clutching tighter. Sarah didn't have an answer. Hope felt thinner than the air they breathed, a cruel mirage trickling away like sand between fingers. It's going to be okay, she assured, but even she didn't believe it. Shadows began to weave at the edges of the alley, shapes moving with intent, sinister echoes of the paranoia that gripped the streets. I think there's someone with them, her daughter murmured. But the flickering light from the emergency vehicle began to fade. Then, silence. An unsettling pause, as if the city itself held its breath. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted, sending tremors through their feet, rattling them to the bone. Don't move. Sarah hissed, panic flaring in her chest. She glanced out, peeking into the shadowed chaos. Figures appeared and disappeared, survivors or specters, she couldn't tell. The wind carried urgent whispers, secrets that spun a chilling tapestry of fear and intrigue. What lay ahead? Was there safety in numbers, or was hiding just an illusion? They couldn't afford to wait any longer. Let us go. Sarah urged as she took a tentative step back into the fray. But before they could escape the darkness, a voice boomed from behind them, a voice that promised answers, or perhaps more terror. You shouldn't be out here, not now. Who was calling in the shadows? What truths did they hold? The city was not just collapsing, it was revealing a deeper, darker underbelly. And Sarah knew one thing they needed to find out before it was too late. Turn around slowly, the voice commanded, grave and smooth like dark velvet, slicing through the tension in the air. Sarah felt her heart hammer against her ribcage. She could almost hear it, the frantic rhythm echoing her fear. Reluctantly, she faced the shadows, squinting to catch a glimpse of the speaker. A tall figure stepped into the marginal light filtering down the alley, his face obscured by a hood. The silhouette was imposing, every inch suggesting authority and danger. Who are you? Sarah croaked, her voice trembling as fiercely as her grip on her daughter's hand. They're coming, he replied, his tone low and urgent, cutting through her query. And if you don't hurry, you'll regret staying here. Mom, we need to go. Her daughter tugged at her, eyes wide with desperation. The facade of calm she desperately tried to maintain began to crumble. This man could either be their savior or their doom. What do you mean they're coming? Sarah pressed, stepping forward against her instincts. Who are you? The city knows its own, he stated enigmatically. And it's waking up. You need to decide now. Stay and find out what's truly happening, or run while you still can. Each breath Sarah took felt charged with uncertainty. She glanced at her daughter, whose fright mirrored her own. They had already lost so much. Could they afford to risk everything on a stranger's warning? Loud cracks echoed once more from above, chaos dancing in the streets like maddened spirits. A shard of broken concrete fell nearby, sending up a cloud of dust that engulfed them. Move! With the urgency of a mother's instinct, Sarah took a determined step forward, but the man caught her arm, his grip firm. Follow me, and don't look back, he urged, eyes flickering toward the darkness behind them. What about the others? We can't leave without, but her voice trailed off as she witnessed the haunting silhouettes, drawn dangerously close, their intentions unclear. There's no time. He insisted, letting go of her to start moving deeper into the shadows. Her heart weighed heavy, pounding against fear and uncertainty. She had no choice but to follow. Each step ignited a swirl of emotions: will or regret, hope or despair. As they crept further into the alley, the strange figure led them past stagnant puddles reflecting life's remaining flickers. Cautiously, Sarah peered back, visions of the city burning in her mind, each crumbling stone a facet of something larger unraveling. The man suddenly stopped, holding up a hand to signal her. Shoo, he gestured for silence. Listen. The world around them quieted, an oppressive hush wrapping around them, filled with an undercurrent that made the hairs on her neck stand. That insistent whisper beckoned again, hauntingly familiar yet rife with malice. What are they? Her daughter whimpered, eyes not leaving the man, who now seemed a cryptic guardian lost within this nightmare. Things you can't imagine, he warned softly. This city fed them. And now, they want more. Without warning, a scream erupted in the distance, piercing the stillness and sending a jolt through Sarah's body. Her heart raced again, memories of comfort and safety strangled beneath the weight of dread. Then something shifted behind them. The shadows grew deeper, and the cries transformed into frantic growls that ignited the very air around them. Go! The man shouted, urgency exploding in his voice. This way! They took off, sprinting into the unknown, breathless and terrified, desperation propelling them to run faster than they ever had before. What were they running from? As the chaos around them exploded into a symphony of terror, Sarah cast one last glance back, catching a fleeting glimpse of lurking shadows waiting, hungry and poised to strike, and in that moment, a chilling realization gripped her: this city held more than crumbling buildings. What had they awakened? The answers loomed heavy in the air, as oppressive as the ground beneath their feet. And Sarah knew they were being hunted. Would they find safety before it was too late? Or would they become mere echoes in the city's inevitable demise? They plunged into the darkness, adrenaline coursing through Sarah's veins, each frantic step amplifying the pounding in her chest. The man led them into a narrower passage, a ragged breath escaping Sarah as she fought to keep pace, her daughter's small hand clasped firmly in her own. Every echoing footfall behind them seemed to grow louder, a relentless reminder of the shadows stalking their every move. Where are we going? Sarah gasped, desperation tinging her voice. To safety, the man replied, never breaking stride. But we have to reach the underpass. The words barely registered as they slipped deeper into the heart of the alleyways. Her senses heightened, she could hear nothing but the rhythm of their rushed breaths and the raw whispers of the night creeping around them. A chill ran down her spine, feeding the tightness in her chest. What lay ahead? They rounded a corner and skidded to a halt. Before them stood a dilapidated door, nearly swallowed by the wall. It seemed an impossible sanctuary, a broken promise in a world filled with fractures. Get inside. Now. The man urged, urgency lacing his tone as he shoved the door open. They galvanized into motion, stepping over the threshold into the dim interior where flickering shadows played on the walls like desperate specters. Sarah took a quick scan, spotting debris and broken furniture scattered haphazardly. What is this place? She dared to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. An old maintenance hub. It's a sanctuary for a few. His eyes narrowed, gauging the darkness around them. For those who haven tea let fear swallow them alive. You'll be safe here until... Until what? She pressed. Fear prickled up her arms as panic began to set in. That's not the question we should be asking. He moved to the window, peering through the grime-covered glass. The question is how long we can stay hidden from them. Just then, a cacophony erupted outside, sizzling through the vulnerability of the silence. The air shook with growls and shouts that morphed into screams as bodies collided into each other in a maelstrom of chaos. Sarah's heart lurched as she felt her daughter tremble beside her. "What is happening?" her daughter asked, eyes begging for answers that Sarah didn't have. "The city is giving birth to its nightmares," the man said, a grim expression tightening his features. "Those that once slept are now awake. And they're hungry." An unholy roar surged outside, followed by a crash as something large collided with the metal gates flanking the alley. Sarah's blood ran cold. The beastly sounds echoed the weight of her fear. "Stay close," she whispered protectively to her daughter, pulling her tighter against her side. Then, without warning, the lights flickered above, plunging them into darkness. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Keep quiet," the man hissed, eyes steeling themselves against shadows that threatened to bludgeon every sense. They huddled together, hearts syncopating in a disjointed rhythm amidst the growing storm outside. The shadows seemed to cling to the door, crawling with an insatiable urge to breach the fragile sanctuary between them and that haunting world. Minutes felt like hours, and just as Sarah's lungs began to ache, the eerie sounds outside began to fade. Her hopes danced with flickers of light as they ventured dangerously close to silence, but then, an unholy screech erupted, reverberating through the walls, sending terror racing through Sarah's veins. It wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. They had not escaped the wrath of the awakened. "Why are they doing this?" her daughter whimpered, pulling back slightly. "They want to reclaim their domain. We're nothing but intruders in their world," the man answered, his jaw set with grim determination. "This will only get worse if we don't find a way out." "What can we do?" Sarah asked, her mind racing, seeking hope in the chaos. "Survive," he said, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered across his expression. The oppressive quiet once more hung in the air, but Sarah's instincts screamed that this was far from over. As they listened intently, barely breathing, the ground trembled beneath them, a promise that whatever they were hiding from was close, veering toward them. What awaited them on the other side of that door? And would their fight for survival take them beyond the darkness? The rumbling grew, a low vibration that crept through the walls like an impending storm. Sarah's heart pounded in her ears as the shadows outside writhed with a sinister energy. She felt her daughter's small body shivering against her side, fear thick in the air. "Stay quiet," the man whispered again, but Sarah's insides twisted with dread. They couldn't stay here. Not while whatever was out there was battering against their haven. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed from the entrance, splintering the tense silence and sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. The door quivered, and Sarah whirled, dragging her daughter back toward the farthest corner of the room. "Move!" the man hissed, eyes darting toward the edges of the dark room, but where could they go? She caught sight of a narrow staircase leading down to an unknown abyss, shadows sliding over the steps like flowing liquid. "Down there!" he urged, the urgency in his voice forcing her feet to move. The decision felt desperate, but there was no other option. With her daughter held tightly in her grasp, they rushed down the creaky stairs, every footfall echoing in eerie harmony with the chaos above. The air grew damp and cold, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Sarah fought the urge to look back, to see what horror awaited them above. She couldn't. She had to focus on the now, on the shadows lurking behind them and the watery light emanating from further below. They reached a landing that merged into a dimly lit room, the flickering bulbs overhead casting ghostly shadows. An old, rusting generator sat in one corner, a relic of a bygone era, and next to it, a thin beam of light spilled through a cracked window. "Hide," the man ordered, his tone commanding as he ushered them behind a stack of discarded crates. It was cramped and the air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay. From their hiding spot, they listened as the once feeble noise above morphed into a harsh clamor, primal and wild. It was as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart, the rawness of their plight clawing at the edges of her sanity. Then, the floor vibrated again, the heavy thuds like monstrous steps pounding closer. Sarah's breath hitched, her child's small fingers tightened around hers. In that moment, she wished for safety, for normalcy. What do they want? What are they? Her daughter's voice trembled, breaking the fragile silence. In time, the man sighed heavily, "You'll understand. But for now, all we can do is hide and hope they pass over us." More sounds erupted above, crashing metal and snarls blending into a chaotic opera. Sarah clamped a hand over her daughter's mouth to stifle any stray sound. The girl's eyes brimmed with tears, and her body trembled. The noises erupted into an unfiltered frenzy, violent bursts of rage that sent shivers racing up Sarah's spine. "Keep low," the man urged, his eyes stealing as he peered through a small gap in the crates. "This isn't just an attack, they're hunting." The words hung in the air, suffocating the little hope they had left. Hunting. It felt targetless, relentless, a door left ajar for nightmares to flood in. The thought tore through Sarah, and she felt a swell of fear mixed with the weight of a chilling realization. Suddenly, with a sickening crash, the door above them flew open. The sound ripped through her like a jagged knife, slashing the tight confines of their hiding spot. "They're here," the man whispered, his voice trembling for the first time. In that electrified moment, Sarah's mind screamed for answers. What waited beyond those fragments of safety? And would they still stand a chance against the wild, hungry tide? The answer loomed like a looming shadow, and she felt the icy clench of despair. Even in the darkness, a question burned fiercely in her mind: would they ever see the light again? The room fell silent, a thick anticipation thrumming like a live wire. Sarah's pulse raced as she felt the warm breath of her daughter against her arm, the only remaining comfort in a world gone mad. The man beside them was tense, his muscles coiled, ready to spring into action at the slightest provocation. "Stay down," he hissed, eyes narrowing at the entrance. A shadow moved at the top of the stairs. Footsteps, a slow, deliberate cadence that echoed ominously in the cramped space. Sarah held her breath, praying that they were invisible, that the crates would shield them from whatever horror had breached their sanctuary. Softer sounds followed. A low growl, guttural and primal, seeped through the darkness like smoke. It was close. With every beat of her heart, dread clawed at her throat. "What are they?" Her daughter whispered, the tremor in her small voice breaking Sarah's last thread of composure. The man glanced at Sarah, urgency flashing in his eyes. "They're not just beasts. They're hunters," he whispered, the weight of his words hanging like a noose in the tense air. As if summoned by the haunting melody of fear, the shadow at the top of the stairs shifted. A pair of yellow eyes glinted in the dim light, malicious and hungry. They searched the room and locked onto their hiding spot. Sarah's breath wrestled with panic. "Quiet!" the man commanded, his voice barely above a whisper, as he scrambled to obscure their presence. The creature, a nightmarish amalgamation of sinew and fur, muscles rippling under its dark skin, stepped forward, drawn by the intoxicating scent of fear. Each cautious movement stirred the dust in the air, spiraling toward Sarah's face. She stifled a cough, fighting against the chokehold of her instincts. With an explosive crash, the crates shifted. Her heart stalled as the hunting gaze of the creature met hers. The world reduced to that brief moment, an eternity of dread hanging between them. "It sees us!" her daughter yelped, her fear erupting like a grating siren. In a flash, the man lunged forward, grabbing a rusted pipe from the ground. He rose, swinging it wildly to create space between them and the monster. "Run!" he shouted, his voice erupting like thunder as he engaged the dark beast. Sarah felt the flicker of desperation, pulling her daughter to her feet. They stumbled out of the corner, the narrow room feeling like a cage closing in. "Go! Now!" The man's furious growls mixed with the creature's howls as they clashed, metal screaming against claw, a cacophony swirling in chaos. They darted toward the cracked window, filtering in shards of moonlight, the distant promise of freedom lying just beyond their reach. But as they neared it, the creature's feral growl rose, vibrating through the air like a drumroll of impending doom. "Climb! Sarah urged as she hoisted her daughter toward the window, adrenaline fueling her, but fear weighed her down. She glanced back, the image seared into her mind, the man grappling with the beast, desperately fighting for their escape, a flicker of heroism in the face of horrific odds. The creature, unrelenting, threw him aside and turned toward Sarah, its glinting eyes fixated on them. Sarah's stomach twisted. "Come on, baby," she gasped, pushing her daughter through the window. As the girl tumbled out into the night, Sarah hesitated only for a heartbeat, her need to protect rising like a tide. She squeezed through the gap, feeling claws swipe at her back, just grazing her skin as she fell. They landed outside in the overgrown grass, the night air thick with iron and dread. "What is happening?" her daughter gasped, breathless and wide-eyed. The sounds of struggle melted into the distance, but the ominous thud still echoed in Sarah's ears. "Run!" she cried, pulling her daughter close as they darted into the oppressive darkness surrounding the abandoned building. There was no safety, no solace. Just the hunt, and they were the hunted. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, and Sarah's heart thumped violently in her chest. They sped through the underbrush, adrenaline surging. Uncertainty lighting their path like a dying firefly, but just as they thought they escaped, a howl ripped through the air, a call that struck deep, awakening something primal in her. "Sarah!" The man's voice pierced the murky chaos, and with it, a terrifying question loomed over them. What would they have to face to survive beyond the haunted darkness? With every ounce of will, she pressed her daughter forward, determined to find the light, even as the shadows whispered her name. Branches snapped underfoot as they plunged deeper into the thick underbrush, the weight of the night pressing down around them. Sarah tightened her grip on her daughter's hand, the child's small fingers trembling in response. Fear flared hot in her chest, mingling with the urgency to put distance between them and the nightmare that had just unfolded. "Where are we going, Mom?" her daughter panted, glancing back as if she could still see the menace pursuing them. "Anywhere but here," Sarah replied, her voice clipped as she scanned their surroundings. Shadows loomed, threatening to swallow them whole, but she pushed ahead. The moonlight flickered through the trees above, casting elongated shapes that danced like specters around them. "Mommy," the girl started, but the words stopped short as another howl resonated through the night. It was close. Too close. Sarah felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up, a primal warning. "Keep moving," she snapped, driven by adrenaline and instinct. They darted, dodging branches and brambles that clawed at their clothes like the very beasts they fled. Suddenly, the man's voice echoed nearby, desperate and strained. "Sarah! Over here!" He emerged from the undercurrent of trees, bloodied but resolute, his hands still gripping the dented pipe as he staggered toward them. Relief surged through Sarah, momentarily overshadowing her dread. "Get down!" he shouted, diving to the ground as another ghastly howl ripped through the air. The sound was layered with rage, vibrating off the trees, melding with the rhythmic pounding of Sarah's heart. The creature wasn't far behind. She could sense it, feel its malice like a living thing pressing against her skin. Every instinct screamed for them to flee, yet her body betrayed her, paralyzed by the tension of the moment. "Sarah! Move!" The man's voice broke through her frozen state, his urgency electrifying her limbs. They were exposed, vulnerable in the moonlight, and they had to act fast. Sarah pushed her daughter down beside an old tree, moss-heavy with rain, and crouched close. The man joined them, his breaths coming in quick, sharp gasps. "We can't stay here," he warned, scanning the darkness surrounding them. "What if it comes this way?" the girl asked, her voice barely a whisper tinged with terror. "It will if it smells us." "Do you have anything?" the man asked, turning to Sarah. "Just some lint from my pocket," she replied, disheartened. Behind her bravado lay a gnawing fear, it felt like a countdown ticking down in her mind. "No, I mean," he trailed off, his gaze darting to the shadows, calculating. "We need to distract it." Heart racing, Sarah scanned the area. It was then that a shaft of moonlight illuminated a long, thin branch nearby broken and jagged. An idea struck her like a lightning bolt. "Here," Sarah whispered, nodding toward the branch. "If I can throw it that way." The man nodded, understanding, lighting his features. "It'll give us a second. When it's distracted, we need to run for that open field." He pointed toward a dim glow far off, possibly a flicker of distant streetlights. With trembling hands, Sarah picked up the branch, her palms clammy against the rough bark. Time slowed around them as she weighed her options, fear wrestling with a sliver of resolve. She took a breath, steadying herself, then hurled the branch into the night. It cracked against a rock, sending a spray of debris skittering across the ground. The response was immediate. The howl transformed into a roar, guttural and brimming with fury. The creature's presence shifted, drawn to the sound. Sarah's heart raced as she seized the moment. Now! Run! They sprinted side by side, the world blurring around them, adrenaline pushing them forward. The cacophony of crashing branches followed closely behind, echoing in furious pursuit, but as they reached the open field, a new howl sliced through the air, sharper, closer, resonating not just through the ground but in their bones, a chilling reminder that the nightmare was far from over. "Look out!" the man shouted, pointing to the horizon, where a cluster of shadows appeared, encircling them. Questions surged in Sarah's mind. Would they truly escape, or was this just another step deeper into hell? With the shadows looming and dread unfurling around them like a dark tunnel, one question blared louder than the others: how many more would it take to awaken the beasts that waited among the stars? The shadows slithered closer, their shapes twisted and ominous against the pale light of the moon. The distant streetlight flickered, as if it, too, sensed the danger encroaching upon them. Sarah's heart raced, pumping fear and adrenaline through her veins as she glanced back, her breath hitching at the sight of the dark figures coalescing at the edge of the field. "Keep running!" the man shouted, his voice strained yet commanding, urging them to push forward. With her daughter clutched tightly to her side, Sarah dashed across the uneven ground, the grass slick with dew and the chill of the approaching dawn. But even as they ran, a sense of dread loomed larger than the shadows behind them, gnawing at her resolve. "Mommy, I can't!" the girl gasped, her small feet stumbling on the uneven expanse. "Focus! You've got to keep going." Sarah felt desperation rise within her, but she couldn't let it show. Her daughter looked to her as if expecting answers, hoping for a miracle that felt increasingly out of reach. Then, without warning, the ground erupted behind them. A great force split the earth, sending dirt and stones flying as the creature breached the surface. A monstrous limb clawed its way into view, dark and glistening, stretching wide like a dark cloud blotting out the starry sky. A primal scream tore from Sarah's throat, a sound born from marrow-deep terror. "Run!" she screamed again, knowing they had to escape the hell that was unfurling behind them. They sprinted once more, but forward was not the only direction the wicked shadows moved. They began to close in from both sides like a vice, tightening with every step. "Mommy! What is it?" Her daughter's voice was shrill now, edged with the panic that gripped them both. "Something that wants to hurt us. Just keep going." The urgency in Sarah's voice broke like glass as they crossed into a thicket of gnarled trees. They ducked, weaving among the trunks, desperate to find cover from the impending doom lurking in the darkness, but the shadows, thickening as they came, weren't distracted. They merged into a single entity, a towering silhouette with glowing eyes that pierced through the night. Each step they took seemed to echo twice, the beast's massive frame moving in sync with their trembling hearts. "We can't let it catch us!" the man shouted, adrenaline coursing through him as he glanced at the pull of an opening in the trees ahead. "Over there!" he pointed, the urgency clawing at Sarah's mind. Was hope shimmering ahead, or was it merely another trap? With renewed determination, they barreled toward the gap, but the creature howled again, a guttural sound that sent vibrations through the ground, almost enough to make Sarah stumble in her haste. "Mom! Her daughter gasped again, but the words fell short as they burst through the brush. They tumbled onto the dirt road that cut through the woods, the asphalt glowing white in the moonlight. The man halted, eyes darting. Which way? We can't split up. Take the left. Sarah urged without thinking, her instincts kicking in. If they could just reach the nearest town, perhaps there was still a chance. Mom! The girl screamed, her voice shrill and desperate, but before Sarah could respond, the night shattered. A blinding light engulfed them, bathing the road in an unnatural glow. Sarah squinted against the brilliance, shielding her daughter as strange shapes coalesced within the illumination. Were they friends, foes, or something altogether unholy? The man yanked them behind a car parked at the side of the road, but the illumination bore down, wrapping them in its suffocating grip. Stay close. He warned, scanning as shadows danced ominously around them, but as the light dimmed, one question loomed above them, echoing with anxiety what new horror awaited them in this fleeting moment of safety. That ominous glow flickered again, and from its depths, a figure began to emerge, a silhouette shrouded in mystery and fate. The figure stepped into view, tall and imposing. Surprisingly, it wore a long, tattered cloak, trailing behind like a whisper against the dying light. A hood shielded its face, casting a veil of shadow over features that remained hidden. As it raised its hands, a gust of wind swirled around them, carrying the scent of earth and decay. Who are you? The man shouted, fists clenched, muscles taut with tension. The fear simmering in Sarah's chest threatened to boil over. She could hear her heart pounding louder than the monstrous breaths of the creature behind them. Guides and protectors, the figure replied, the voice smooth yet cold as polished stone. Or harbingers of your end, should you choose poorly. Choose. Sarah's voice trembled, confusion mixing with fear. What do you mean? Behind the figure, the shadows surged and recoiled, thrashing at the edges of the light like hungry dogs, desperate and furious. She felt her daughter clutch her tighter, trembling in terror, as if sensing the threat cloaked in uncertainty. Listen. The figure leaned closer, the hood shifting slightly. The darkness behind you is not just physical. It represents the worst of humanity's fears, the choices that led you here. Choices? The man frowned, stepping forward. What do you want from us? Survival requires clarity. The figure's voice held an eerie echo that felt like a separate being whispering in unison. The path you choose now decides your fate. Will you trust the light or succumb to the darkness? With their options narrowed, Sarah looked around. Was this a trick? Could they even afford to trust this unknown entity? Behind them, the growl of the beast reverberated like a distant storm, a reminder that time was running out. Mommy, I'm scared. Her daughter whimpered, her small fists clutching desperately at Sarah's shirt. I know, baby. I know, Sarah whispered, forcing herself to breathe, to think. In that moment, instinct took over. We can't stay here. We have to choose. The figure interrupted, its voice rising above the cacophony. The shadows crept closer, tendrils reaching out as if to snatch them back into the blackness. The man's gaze darted between Sarah and the looming darkness. What if we don't choose? What if we fight? You'll lose, the figure warned flatly. The creature is a storm that devours hope. You cannot fight what you do not understand. But we can't just, the man stammered, eyes flickering with doubt. Make your decision. The figure commanded, voice ringing like a bell tolling the death of a choice. Desperation clawed at Sarah's throat. They either trusted this specter or surrendered. In a heartbeat, she felt the weight of her daughter's future resting solely on her shoulders. The shadows drew closer, feverish in their ravenous approach. Mommy, please. Her daughter shrieked, the panic ringing bright, the reality settled in the air thick as fog. Sarah gripped her daughter tighter, her resolve hardening. We choose light. We trust you. She shouted into the looming darkness, from the depths of the shadows, her roar erupted like 1,000 crashing waves, an enraged symphony of fury. Very well, the figure replied, retreating a step as the light around them flared again, the silhouette growing brighter. Then prepare yourselves, for the path ahead is fraught with turmoil. You have chosen ice instead of fire, and fire will not be pleased. Before Sarah could grasp the implications, the warmth of the light enveloped them, transforming the air into an electric charge pulsating with potential, and then, they vanished that in an instant, they found themselves teetering on a precipice, the landscape morphing as they stood suspended, leaving behind the road and the shadows. But as they caught their breath, swallowing the shock, distant echoes of laughter twisted through the air, a laughter that chilled Sarah to her core. Was this sanctuary, or had they leaped from one danger into another? Just ahead, an eerie glimmer shimmered against the horizon. Shadows of a town loomed, yet the charm appeared fractured, twisted in unexpected ways, as whispers wound around their feet, pulling them toward unraveling truths. Where are we? She whispered as dread crawled back into her chest. The answer felt pressed against her lips but just out of reach, teasing her with its unholy promise. As she looked back at the man, whose expression mirrored her unease, she knew one thing: the darkness was not only behind them. It was emerging from within, threatening to shatter the fragile seams of their reality. The shadowy whispers grew louder, and a nagging question formed, echoing in the corners of her mind: what was it they had truly unleashed upon themselves? The sunlight broke through the last remnants of the nightmare, awakening Sarah from the chaotic embrace of the shadows that had haunted her through the night. She could hardly breathe, feeling the weight of fear still coiled tightly around her heart. A distant chime echoed, a bell marking the beginning of a new day. They stood at the threshold of what seemed like an abandoned town, buildings awash in strange shades of gray and brown. Something felt different. The air, once thick with dread, held a faint scent of hope, painted with the aroma of damp earth and the gentle whisper of a breeze. The man next to her looked around cautiously, his brow furrowed as if trying to discern what had become of the monsters they had evaded. Where are we? Sarah whispered, uncertainty lacing her voice. Her daughter, still clinging to her side, peered up with wide eyes, searching for answers that felt precarious, hanging just out of reach. I don't know, the man replied, his tone heavy with both resolve and confusion. But we're out of the darkness, for now. They shifted cautiously down the cracked pavement, taking in the haunting beauty of the town. The remnants of its past life lingered, yet a sense of abandonment hung heavily in the air. Shadows still danced at the edges of peripheral vision, but now they felt more like echoes of fear, fading with every step toward the heart of the town. Can we stay here? The girl asked, her voice fragile with lingering trepidation. Sarah glanced at her daughter, wishing she could wrap her in the shimmering fabric of safety, but reality held its grip tightly. I don't know, Sarah said. We need to find out if there's anyone else here first. As they pressed deeper into the town, they discovered old posters plastered on the sides of crumbling buildings. They advertised a festival from a time long gone, a time when laughter filled the streets and joy danced in the sunlight. Mom, look! Her daughter pointed at the faded pictures of smiling faces lost in time. Do you think they had fun? Maybe they did, Sarah replied, the memory of her own past sparking an ember of warmth within her chest. But things can change, honey. From around a corner, a rustle startled them, and all three spun, hearts pounding in unison. A figure emerged, cautious yet alive with curiosity. It was an old woman wrapped in layers of fabric stained by the passage of time, her eyes filled with a mixture of amusement and wisdom. Ah, new faces. Welcome. She chuckled, shaking her head as though reminiscing. There was kindness in her voice, a musical quality that cracked the tension lingering in the air. You're safe here. The shadows do not travel this far. With those words, relief flooded through Sarah, but it was mixed with doubt. Safe? For how long? The woman smiled, her eyes twinkling like stars. Safety has a way of being found even when besieged by darkness. But remember, the real monsters lie within. You must confront them to remain free. Her words hit Sarah like a wave crashing against rocky shores. Could they truly face what haunted them? The town, though inviting, felt like a fragile bubble floating in a sea of uncertainty. "Thank you," Sarah managed, her hands instinctively seeking her daughter's, squeezing reassurance into that small palm. "We're looking for something. A place to rest." "You've already arrived at such a place," the woman said softly. "Let your hearts find solace here. The sun rises anew each day, illuminating paths to healing." As night fell again and darkness whispered ever so cautiously from the edges of their sanctuary, Sarah felt a flicker of hope igniting within her being. Would they stay? That decision hovered in the air like a morning mist. They could choose to carve out a new life amidst these shadows of the past. To breathe, to heal, and to nurture the bright spark of their family, embracing the truth that they had fought for survival. As the moon's glow washed over the town like a gentle hand, Sarah welcomed the journey ahead. They would reclaim the pieces of their dreams, brush the dust off memories, and seek joy where uncertainty once dwelled. Together, they stepped into the embrace of the night, ready to embrace whatever waited beyond the threshold, hoping to find more than just survival, hoping to rediscover life itself. And so, they began the next chapter, a beautiful symphony blossoming from chaos, echoing brightly against the whispers that threatened to devour hope. Together, in the stillness, they would forge their path forward. No longer just evading shadows, instead, they were turning to face the light, hand in hand, intertwined in their resolve and love. In that fragile moment of certainty, they decided. They would live, not merely survive. If you've made it this far, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories coming your way. Now's the moment to show your support by smashing that like button. And don't hold back, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Remember to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, your support means everything.